we're going to try to do a nice black ink treatment on this pirate, where I'm going to try to have it be a little rougher, a little looser, but that should be good for a scalawag like this. Even though he's got a nice pose going and he's obviously thinking about something very important. I'm thinking that this particular brush that I'm using, I may have mentioned before, really can throw some ink down in ways that I'm typically uncomfortable with. But when you really want to have some unexpected results, or maybe have things be a little less clean than you're used to, it's a good one to take you out of your comfort zone. Made a couple quick decisions about how I formerly had my pencils. I took this collar and I put it a little bit more under the jacket, right here at the collar, and I gave this collar a little more depth up here at the top. Just trying to give a little more character than I might have previously given it in the pencils. Try to be very thin on some of these pens, or some of these pen lines. In certain spots, and try and thicken it back up in some others. Like I said, this pen is a bit of a maverick for me. So we're going to find out together how some of this stuff looks. Try to keep some thick lines towards the front, the foreground of the character. Which will make it interesting as I try to tame this guy a little bit for the thinner lines after. Maybe this bottom of his cutlass here. Just give a couple shadow lines real quick there. Some heavy lines on his baggy pirate pants. And this is the back of his coat. Just make that nice and dark. I changed up my grip a little bit there. I don't know if you saw my hand. I did that just to try to see if I could line it up in general. As I'm getting on this right hand of his, I don't want my lines to be too thick over here. I'm going to run into another sort of good question I want to have some shadow over here, but I don't want it to overwhelm the picture, especially if it's going to be on his far arm. So we're going to try to bring some shadows back in on this side. Try to keep a lot of focus on this front half over here. Give him a pretty good pirate nose there. I'll try to take a little bit of it back. Try to keep a light touch on his features, which would be kind of difficult with a pen like this. I think I got it. He's got a nice tricorn hat here. Try to give it a little bit of depth. Let's see. Alright. I am going to cheat for a minute and go back to a pen I can control a little bit more. Just going to add a couple lines to clean some things up. I'm going to try to also make sure that I've got some detail where I want it, which is up in his face. Cross hatch a little beard on him. Got his little bandana here. I'm going to again try to use this pen that I can control a little better for those details. Every once in a while I can do some things that mimic that heavier pen, just because this one does have more control. I can go thick to thin pretty easy. I can control those lines better. The idea I'm hoping for is that the transition really won't be noticed as much between the pens. But it's probably a little too clean. I'm going to do some light scratches down the side here. Give me a little bit of depth to the ink. It gives like a nice semi-gradient here, which depending on the kind of pens you're using, you can do some nice effects like that. I think I've in the past talked about having a light touch. If you get the right pens, you can really work that light touch. Let me go back to my Maverick pen for a minute. kind of revise my thoughts on this boot and his foot just a little bit. A little bit of a trembly line there. Real quick. Use this rough brush for this rock back here. Try to sweep it a little bit. So a lot of my lines are coming back this way towards the character. Switch up one more time to the finer detail pen. Try to give this hand a little more detail, especially on this side. This one's on the far side, so I don't want it to accidentally become too thick. Change my pencil just a little bit to have that in there. Then we'll real quick run over this with the eraser. We'll get some of those extra lines out of there. A lot of times it can be actually very amazing to see what happens between the pencil and the ink stage. Like sometimes the pencils can be very beautiful and hold a lot of detail that the inking might miss, and vice versa. It's just something that happens in the process, and depending on each artist, certain things become apparent. All right, there we go.